Everybody hates income taxes and the IRS, or at least they've got big complaints about it. Let me give you a rundown of some of the current complaints about our tax system that come up every year around this time for reasons I just don't quite understand. Some people say there are too many loopholes in the tax code, or that there are too few incentives in the tax code. Taxes are either too high or taxes are too low. You might think the system is biased against this group that you favor, or favors too much this group that you don't like so much. Or that the IRS is too abusive, or that the IRS is too lenient. And the thing about all these complaints, even though a lot of them seem to contradict each other, is that they're all absolutely true. They're all on the money, because our tax code is this huge mess of contradictions, unfairly enforced, and all the rest. And we're a free people. We voted this stuff in. You'd think we could vote this stuff out, and yet, except for some insane people, who I'm one of them, trying to push the fair tax, there's no serious effort to really reform the way this country collects taxes. Scott, I want to start with you on the constitutional angle, and I think this gets to the heart of why the IRS is just so awful. I'm going to read 30 words to you, just 30 words. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. That's the text of the 16th Amendment, and basically what it says is the Constitution stops where taxes start. Congress is empowered to do damn near anything. How did we get into this mess, and can we get out of it?
How we get into this mess is a very, very long story. Can we get out of it? I doubt it. And I'll be honest with you, because the reason why the tax code is so complicated is because taxes are about one of the most personal things you can do to somebody, other than healthcare. Taxes, as far as government's involvement in your life. When you think about it, all those loopholes and deductions and exemptions and all that kind of stuff is because somebody lobbied for that. It's because there are some people in this country who want that. And that's why we can't reform the tax code, frankly, because any reform of the tax code would mean sweeping away a lot of these things that were hard fought for by individuals and by groups of individuals who said, hey, it's not fair that I should have to pay tax on money that I devote to buying a house, to giving to church, to whatever you want to choose. And so every dollar of the tax code is personal, which is why it makes it so difficult to change. Frankly, my big beef with the tax code is that I still haven't been able to figure out how much money I have to have deducted from my paycheck so that I don't have to spend a bunch of money when it comes time to file the return. No matter what I do, it seems that doesn't happen. I would love a system where you would just say, okay, every dollar that comes into you, you've got to give us 10% of it, or whatever the percentage is. It's like, okay, I got a check for $1,000. Here's $100. Take it and go away. But no,
I love
I've got
the
to
go
do this
away part.
Complicated algorithm that I have to play with at the end. And now, frankly, I was thinking, is there anything good about the tax code? The best thing I think that's happened in the federal income tax world, and it also affects state income taxes in recent years, is the fact that you can use a private company like Tax Act or TurboTax or any of these things where you can go online and they say, I'll tell you what, that big fat book that was printed on newsprint in 6-point type that you used to have to muck through every time you filed your taxes? Forget about that. Just answer a few simple questions for us. Did you do this or didn't you do this? How much of this did you do? And you just go check, 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 and you go through it, and then it fills it out. And you just kind of have faith that this private organization that has decided to run the algorithms on the text of the tax code has done so accurately. And you see the number that appears in the upper right corner that says, yeah, this is what your refund is going to be, or this is how much you owe. The free enterprise engagement in the tax process, I think, is the best thing that happens. But frankly, I don't think we're ever going to change it in a wholesale kind of way, because there are too many private interests at stake. And anybody, even, delusional people like yourself, Steve, who think that some sort of fair tax or flat tax or anything like that is going to happen, won't, because every time you think of this, Steve, and you have this idea that this is actually going to happen, I want you to picture acres upon acres of oxenes with gore holes in them. because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Somebody's ox gets gored, and nobody is going to settle for reform of the tax code until they can do so without their ox getting gored.
And the part you left out, Scott, is there are all those private interests that you mentioned, but there are also all the public interests where Congress gets to pick winners and losers, and the bureaucracy doesn't want to give up any of its arbitrary powers or any of the rest. So maybe the solution, and I'm being facetious with this, is a line from Bill's favorite movie, Aliens. Maybe we should we need to take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure, which is what I think of when I think of the IRS. Bill, let's say we've done that. There's a smoking crater where the IRS used to be. I can dream. Nobody was in the building at the time, I promise. Well, not too many people. There's a smoking crater, but to fund even the things we do believe in, national defense, maybe some moonshot stuff from NASA and all the rest, we're going to have to collect something. What would you replace that smoking crater with, Bill?
Well, if I had the levers of government and I was facing a gigantic radioactive crater where the IRS used to be, the first thing I would do is nuke it again.
I'd
nuke
sure.
it again. And I would keep nuking it. In fact, I would dedicate a significant amount of revenue to have this site nuked on a daily basis and an hourly basis if this shows any kind of sign of life at all. If bacteria creep back in there, it's time to nuke it again. All of our woes are due to the 16th Amendment. While the 17th Amendment did enormous damage to the structure of America by removing the power of the states in this giant three-way balancing act of state, local, and federal, it's the 16th Amendment that has given us the immortal bureaucracies, $25 trillion in debt. All of this is based on income tax. We were told that rich people might pay as high as 3%, but other people would pay 1%. That was a promise. So now they're taking half. Look, there's so much wrong with the current system, but it is essentially, at its heart, immoral for two reasons. First of all, it's immoral because it draws a dividing line between individuals, an arbitrary line that is set by humans, above which you pay more, below which you pay less, and as far as society and culture are concerned today, above which you're an evil person, below which you're not. Half of the people pay no taxes at all. The richest 5% pay 65% of the taxes. And the idea that this is somehow fair appeals to the lowest base instincts of every human being on the planet, which is envy and greed. He's got more than I do. I don't want to work for mine, so I'm going to find a way to take it from him and give it to me. It's just plain stealing. The second reason it is immoral is it's taxing income, when what it should be doing is, obviously, you need to have some sort of tax to run the government, and a small, limited government that fits in the box that it came in is necessary and good and required. But when you are just harvesting income, the government doesn't care what the economy is doing. It's just taking money from you. If you're taxed on expenditures, you as an individual citizen get to decide how much tax you want to pay, because you get to decide what you want to buy, what quality, what quantity, all of it. You get to determine your own tax rate if it's a sales tax, some kind of a tax like that. But finally, Steve, the ultimate thing is this. If you have a government that has the ability to take money from you as you make it at the point of a gun, then that government doesn't care how well the economy is doing. It's simply taking your money, and if you make less, they don't care. Yeah. I think the only solution that I could even see possible is to use the inborn greed and mendacity of the government and of the people who go into government and hitch that to economic growth. And so you basically say, hey, if the economy, here's the federal budget. We're going to just make a number, and here it is. Now, if the economy grows 4% this year, the government gets 4% more money next year. If the economy shrinks by 2%, you get 2% less money. Now the government's got an incentive to have everybody in the country doing well, because that's how it's going to determine its own little pile of shekels that can get his little greedy little paws on and stuff. And so I say, hey, let's get this whole thing working in a direction so that the people taking the money and the people from whom the money is being taken at the very least, are pulling in the same direction on the rope.
Okay, lots to chew on here. One thing I've been thinking about lately is maybe we're attacking this from the wrong direction. The 16th Amendment came into law because the progressive movement of the early 20th century needed a lot more money than they could collect off of things like whiskey excise taxes. Alcohol taxes provided something like 40% of Washington's budget. So the progressives teamed up with the prohibitionists, the deal being, we'll help you pass your amendment to outlaw alcohol, and you have to help us pass the income tax amendment because we need to replace all that revenue. And once we had the income tax revenue, the floodgates were opened on federal spending forever and ever. And we're looking at it now. Here we are in relative peacetime. We've got no major wars going on. The economy is humming along. Unemployment is incredibly low levels. Incomes are rising, and yet Washington is going to spend $1 trillion more than it takes in. It doesn't matter what kind of revenue they raise, they're just going to keep spending more and more. And that maybe is the angle we need to tackle this from. So I thought of this in a different context, and I was being facetious at the time, but the more I think about it, the more sense I think it makes, even if it's a little weird, a little stupid. But here's how to get the spending in line. Number one, eliminate all taxes. All federal taxes, all of them, every single one. Compliance cost for everybody is zero. So you're probably wondering, where is Washington going to get its money? This is where it gets fun. Individuals, people, businesses will all switch to Bitcoin. All of us, we've all got our smartphones. We're just going to go to Bitcoin. And Washington, the federal government, will be limited to using its own dollars, and they can print as many of them as they want, to spend as much as they want, to buy as many votes as they want, while the rest of us are undisturbed, no IRS, with our Bitcoin, more or less ignoring Washington on a day-to-day basis. And eventually what's going to happen is people are going to find out, and when I say people, I mean everybody from SNAP recipients all the way up to Lockheed Martin are going to find out that their dollars aren't worth a damn because Washington spent all the value away. They printed all the value away. And maybe then,
it's delicious.
Maybe then we can have a come to Jesus moment about our addiction to spending. Until then, I'm afraid Scott's right and we are stuck with this beast, but I don't know. Maybe this is a way out. Be worth a shot. That's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. I'm Steve Green. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.